Amos 6 verse 1. Woe to them that are at ease in Zion and trust in the mount of Samaria, which are named chief of the nations, to whom the house of Israel came. Okay, so he's told us something here. In the first paragraph, we're going to deal with Judah, the south. But you'll notice he's going to tell us some things about the north while he's talking about the south. He says there, look at the major issue in verse 1 is that men are at ease. That is, everything's going fine and they're just on holiday, taking a vacation. That's America. Now, I don't know about the rest of the world. It may be the rest of the world too. Men just don't have any sense of urgency here. You know, everything's been going good. We're, you know, at the peak of our employment and existence. Look at Judges chapter 18. This is what happens when you get it in this spot where you're at ease. I heard I can't remember who it was. Somebody said, you're either in a storm, you've just come out of a storm, or you should be preparing for one. This is where they're sitting. They're not in a storm. They can't remember the last time they had one, or they're not thinking about it, and they should be preparing for the next one, but they're not. Judges 18, look at verse 7. Then 5 men departed and came to Laish, and saw the people that were therein, how they dwelt careless, after the manner of the Zidonians, quiet and secure. And there was no magistrate in the land that might put them to shame in anything. That was David's children's problem. He says over there in, I believe it's 2 Samuel, that let's look at it.
1 Kings 1:6.
Yeah, look at that verse. Back up to verse 5. Then Adonijah, the son of Haggith. All right, who's he talking about? Adonijah, you know who that is? That's the one who stole the throne. Adonijah. Adonijah, the son of Haggith. Who's his father? David is his father. Exalted himself, saying, I will be king. And he prepared him chariots and horsemen and 50 men to run before. Verse 6, and his father had not displeased him at any time in saying, why hast thou done so? David never got on to him and said, hey, what do you think you're doing? That's a father's job. Father's job is to say, hey boy, what do you think you're doing? Teach him how to think. Okay, well if you don't teach them how to think, they just do what comes natural.
Look at what happened with Absalom.
Yeah.
Absalom died, and he said, oh, don't hurt my son, don't hurt my son.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So anyway, I don't know why I got off on all that. Okay, that's living at ease. You need to be... When I grew up, you always feared what was going to come down next. Okay, you were never totally at ease. You were living in your parents' house and you were living for free, but it wasn't that free. At any moment they could snap and you had to go fetch this or do that. Okay, that's the way it should be. You shouldn't be at ease all the time, because what comes from that is what we'll find out here. In Judges 18:7 it says, they lived quiet and secure, and there was no magistrate in the land that might put them to shame in anything. That's the job of the government, is to put people at shame if you did something wrong. Now back then they really did it. They put you in the stocks and people throw tomatoes at you. I mean, that was real shame. And they were far from the Zidonians and had no business with any man. That is, it wouldn't be in the newspaper if somebody came in there and demolished them. So Dan did just that. They came in and took that town. Look at 2 Samuel 11. 2 Samuel 11:1. Here's where David gets in trouble. 2 Samuel 11:1. And it came to pass after the year was expired, so it's he's already been through Christmas, and now it's time to go take all your presents back. At the time when kings go forth to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried still at Jerusalem. He just had enough. And I mean, I can sort of understand. I would give him a break. He's king. He's been doing a lot of good stuff, and he's been fighting nonstop, and he's got a good army out there that'll do the job. Obviously, they did. And he's like, well, I can take a break. No, don't take a break. That's where sin shows up. Isaiah chapter 32. Isaiah 32:9. This is the verse for a woman that's not doing any cooking. Isaiah 32, verse 9. Rise up, you women that are at ease. Go fix me a biscuit. No. Hear my voice, ye careless daughters. Give ear unto my speech. Many days and years shall be troubled, ye careless women. For the vintage shall fail. The gathering shall not come. Tremble, ye women that are at ease. Be troubled, ye careless ones. Strip you and make you bare, and gird sackcloth upon your loins. That is, God's about to do some devastation here. There's going to be a famine. You ought to be concerned about it. But at the moment, everything seems to be fine. We're getting unemployment. What's the problem? Well, it's going to run out. That's the problem. Jeremiah 7, verse 4. I would hate to have lived in the Old Testament times. We've got a great advantage that none of these other people had, and that is we have the Bible that we can open up for ourselves, and God can talk and will talk directly to us and teach us. They didn't have that. You were dependent on the prophet, and you just hoped that it was a real one, not a false one. Jeremiah 7, verse 4. Trust ye not in lying words, saying, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord are these. Okay, they had Joel Osteen 1.0 way back there lying to them. And Jeremiah is saying, don't be trusted in that. Look at Ezekiel 16. Ezekiel 16:49. This is the problem up north. He says, behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom. He's calling her Sodom. Pride, fullness of bread, and abundance of idleness was in her and in her daughters. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. Okay, didn't need to do anything. Sitting on pretty straight. I mean, plenty of money in the bank. Don't need to really hustle for anything. Everything's going just hunky-dory. So that was a problem. And he said they became so wicked he called them Sodom. That's not a good description. Get Luke 6. Luke 6, verse 24. It feels like life is backwards. When you're young and have children and all this stuff, you don't have any money. Then you work all your life and you retire and you actually have some money. You've saved up and you've had all that. Okay, but now you don't have all the responsibilities. Shouldn't that have flipped? Seems like it, but you don't want to get the wrong thing at the wrong time. Here's some people that did. Luke 6:24. But woe unto you that are rich, for you have received your consolation. That's bad news. God said, you've been depending on money for your consolation, and you're rich, so you've already gotten it. When I lower the boom, you won't have any money, and your consolation's already come. I'm not going to be your consolation. Wow. Look at verse 25. Woe unto you that are full, for ye shall hunger. Woe unto you that laugh now, for ye shall mourn and weep. Now, of course, here he's talking to the Jews, and he's telling them tribulation is on the way. And those verses point right to it. Look at James 5. James 5, verse 5. Another tribulation passage. James 5:5. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth, and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts, as in the day of slaughter. That is, it's like we won everything. You know, they won the lottery. The day of slaughter, they got everything. They could go in and kill the other nations and take what they wanted at will. He said, that's the way you've been living, and now God's going to flip the tables. In the tribulation, it's the rich man who's wicked. The poor man is the righteous man, because there's only one reason that he's poor. I think that what's going to happen in the tribulation is it's going to be satanic. So if you're willing to line up with the devil, you'll have plenty. Okay? I mean, that's all he's got he can offer. He can't offer righteousness. He can't even offer pleasure. That's so short-lived that you have to seek another source for it. So what he can offer is wealth and goodies. You'll see in Revelation, we'll get there one day, that that was the thing that Babylon was known for, was they lived it up. They had everything. And that's because the devil's providing it. Well, if you're going to be righteous in the tribulation, you won't have anything that this world can offer. Amos 6, look at verse 1 there. He says, and trust in the mountain of Samaria, which are named chief of the nations, to whom the house of Israel came. Okay, this is aimed at Mount Zion. There is Judah. He says that trust in the mountains of Samaria. So that's north. So they're trusting the fact that they have a buffer between them and real devastation. When Assyria comes down, they've got to come through our brothers to get to us. We really don't have to worry. We'll know about it. If Samaria ever falls, you know, we're a long ways from them. We're good. Not so. Assyria did come in. Look at 2 Kings 19. 2 Kings 19. I'm not going to read the whole chapter to you, but verse 4, we'll pick it up somewhere. 2 Kings 19:4. It may be the Lord thy God will hear all the words of Rabshakeh, who the king of Assyria, his master, hath sent to reproach the living God, and will reprove the words which the Lord thy God hath heard. Wherefore lift up thy prayer for the remnant that are left. Assyria did show up right on their doorstep. Assyria wasn't the great protector they thought it was going to be. Look at Amos 6 verse 2. Amos 6:2. Pass ye to Calneh and see, and from thence go to Hamath the great, and then go down to Gath of the Philistines. Be they better than these kingdoms? He's talking about Judah. Or their border greater than your border? He's like, wait a minute. You're feeling pretty comfortable. Go take a look around. What makes you think that you're qualified to sit at ease? Look at any of these other nations that have fallen. Did they have any right to claim that they couldn't fall? No, they didn't, and they all fell. Look at 2 Kings 18. 2 Kings 18, look at verse 34. When Assyria shows up to Judah, here's what they have to say. The same thing Amos just said. Where are the gods of Hamath and Arphaxad and Arphad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim, Hena, and Iva? Have they delivered Samaria out of my hand? Nope. Nobody's been saved. He's destroyed the heathen and supposedly the godly nation, the northern tribes. It seems like Judah still hadn't woke up. Everybody's falling around them and they're just still snoozing. They've hit the snooze button. The leaders of Judah, in God's opinion, were the top of the heap. And the leaders of Judah were looking at their brothers in the north, Samaria, as though they were their protector, because they're going to be the buffer between us. No, that's not the way it works. Look at Genesis 49. Genesis 49 verse 10. The chief among the nations is supposed to be Judah. Genesis 49:10. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. Well, Jesus hadn't shown up yet, so they've got a lot of work to do. Should have been thinking that, but they weren't. Look at it in Exodus 19, Exodus 19:5. This is what Israel was supposed to be, intended to be, and will be again one day. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, fail, and keep my covenant, didn't happen, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. The Jew is supposed to be on top, and he will be one day, and he's been on just the bottom. I mean, every nation has kicked him out or persecuted him or stole from him. That's because they didn't fulfill what God set them apart and made them a nation for, to obey him. The Israelites came to look for judgment from Judah. That's where they learned, okay, the Israelites love to worship. So what did they do in the north? They said, we'll build our own worship center, and we'll put 2 golden calves out there. Jeroboam did that. Okay, they're copying, mimicking Judah. Judah was the leader whether they intended to be or not. And even a leader can fall real quick if God decides, I don't want you leading anymore. He says of the rulers of the land that he picks up one and he sets the basis of men over them. I mean, wow, that'd make you feel good about being a government official, wouldn't it? Look at Amos 6 verse 3. There's no reason for Judah to feel secure. They didn't have any better borders or better security guards or any of that. Chapter 6 verse 3. Ye that put far away the evil day and cause the seat of violence to come near. Now that's interesting. These are the ones that are sitting at ease. He says they're doing something. In their mind, they're postponing the inevitable. One day they're going to fall. They've already been thinking about it. That's why they talked about Samaria's north of us. That'll be a good buffer. And okay, then the possibilities already entered their head. How about instead of counting on somebody else, put up your own fortifications? But they weren't thinking that. They were thinking we're okay for now. Get Ezekiel 11. Ezekiel 11 verse 3. Ezekiel 11:3. Which say, it is not near. No calamities coming to us. Let us build houses. This city is the cauldron and we be the flesh. We're the melting pot. Okay? That's humanism. Basically, it's what it is. We can pull our own self up by our own bootstraps and we're going to be great, and you know, we've got this American spirit. No, they didn't say American spirit, but they felt like they could accomplish anything. Because God had accomplished the unbelievable with them. But soon, that's what happens when God blesses us. If he continues to do it without making us work in the meantime, we start thinking it's something we deserved, or we're special, or we have great abilities that other people don't. And it doesn't work that way. In the whole book of Lamentations, you find the lament of all the troubles that had befallen Israel, had they only realized where they were. That's what Jeremiah is doing. He's lamenting, he's crying for the whole nation, even though they were too stupid to do it themselves. Now, I'm sure that many of them did. He wasn't the only one that cried. Look at Revelation 2. He said in our verse in Amos, these people do something. They put off the evil day and they cause the seat of violence to come near. Now, I know they didn't understand this at the time, but we don't have any excuse because we've got the full canon. We should understand this. This is a doctrinal statement. It was a prophecy that was over their head, but it shouldn't be over ours. This seat of violence is the Antichrist. It's the time of Jacob's trouble, literally. Revelation 2, look at verse 13. I know thy works, and where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is. And thou holdest fast my name, and hast not denied the faith, even in those days when Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you, where Satan dwelleth. Okay, there's a seat there. He says, this being at ease and not worrying about anything and being wicked, what it's actually doing is it's causing the seat of violence to come near. It's hastening the approach of the Antichrist. Whew, that's bad news. Now that's the seat of iniquity. Look at it in Psalms 94. Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law? That's exactly what the Antichrist is going to do. He's going to create mischief, Psalm 94:20. He's going to put into law mischief. Okay, if somebody doesn't take the mark, let's cut their head off. Tattletale on your neighbor if he doesn't have the mark. That's causing the seat of iniquity to come near. Now, of course, the Antichrist is the reincarnation of Judas Iscariot and Satan and all of the wickedness all combined into a human being. Well, that all began, that's a repeat of something that began a long, long time ago, before Adam and Eve. Violence came into fruition because of Lucifer. Okay, that was violent. Where is it in, I'm thinking of too many verses that are not in my passage here, so I need to quit doing that. No, Ezekiel 28 does give you some information. I'm thinking of 1 Samuel 22. Well, I guess I better look it up. 2 Samuel 22. This is, read this sometime. This is a description of Lucifer's fall. Most people don't realize this is in here, and I didn't for a long time, until you read through it one day and it'll click. Because much of this in here has zero to do with David. Okay, let me pick out some of these verses so I can show you what I'm talking about. 2 Samuel 22. Verse 5, when the waves of death compassed me, the floods of ungodly men made me afraid. Okay, we could act like that was to David, but really it's not. Waves of death? I mean, that you could say that's flowery speech talking about enemies coming after him to kill him. But no, there is something that are waves of death. The great deep, isn't that what Jonah found when he went down to the bottom of the mountains? Verse 6, the sorrows of hell compass me about. That's not human. And I really do not like the description people give of hell on earth. There's never been hell on earth. There's been some bad things, but it's never been like hell. You'll find in shows people talk about hell, and no, it's not hell at all. Here, when the Bible talks about hell, it means hell, because God created it. He knows. He wouldn't lie to us. Okay, so there's that verse. Okay, in my distress I called upon the Lord, I cried to my God, and he did hear my voice out of his temple, and my cry did enter into his ears. You can read through that whole passage. It's great. Verse 11, he rode upon a cherub, he did fly, and he was seen upon the wings of the wind. Really? Well, yeah, it happened when nobody was around. And he made darkness pavilions about him, dark waters and thick clouds of the skies. Through the brightness before him were the coals of fire kindled. The Lord thundered from heaven, and the Most High uttered his voice. He sent his arrows out and scattered them. Lightning discomfited them. You get through that whole thing, and it's a good passage. So what you end up with is, I don't know why I'm jumping off of the deep end here. What you end up with is, this is what happened. Lucifer was given this earth to run, and he had a job to do. Anything that was metaphysical became physical, just like when Adam and Eve ate the fruit in the garden. Something physical became sin, could make them live or die based on God's word. Isn't it millennium, it's going to revert back. You can eat the leaves off of a tree and they'll be for the healing of nations. Okay, something physical, that kingdom of heaven and kingdom of God together at the same time make both physical and spiritual a reality. Just like right now, when you do a good work, you know what happens? It turns into gold and silver in heaven. So Lucifer was to run this earth. While he was running it, he was supposed to be heaping up the praise that was supposed to go to God. When the angelic beings were praising God, he was supposed to deliver that to heaven, and he didn't. That's why the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. That's where it began. When that praise came forth, it turned into gold. In Ezekiel 28, you find out that he's an extortioner. So he takes that money. Well, Jesus Christ, it appears, the second member of the Trinity, had a job. He would to come to earth and collect the money. That's the way it appears. In the process, Isaiah 14 happens. The devil decides he's going to take the top seat. He's going to put his throne above God's. Well, he waits for the right time to do it. He waits until Jesus Christ, well, it wasn't Jesus Christ at the time, the second member of the Trinity, comes to the earth to collect. And when he did, he declared war on him. The war is what you read in 2 Samuel 22. In that war, the second member of the Trinity is delivered by God the Father. And this is how he curses the earth in Genesis 1 and 2. And so I don't know why I got off on all that. Oh, the seed of violence. Yeah, that's why. That's where violence began, right there. You find the same thing in, I'm not using any of my notes tonight. You find the same thing in Genesis 6. When the sons of God came into the daughters of men and all that stuff, you find out that supernatural mixing with the natural. It says the earth was filled with violence through them. It's satanic. Satan is the origin of violence. So be careful with violence. That's why they exalt violence nowadays in video games. And, the thing for kids to do was all the rage. I don't know if they're still doing it or not. Was just going up to people randomly on the street and trying to knock them out. Hit them hard, so that they knock them out. As though that makes any sense at all. That's violence. It's satanic is what it is. Jeremiah 52. A little ways off from 5. Jeremiah 52 verse 9. In history, if we go back and find a literal fulfillment of what Amos has been talking about, we could say it's this. Jeremiah 52 verse 9. Then they took the king and carried him up unto the king of Babylon to Riblah, in the land of Hamath, where he gave judgment upon him. Okay, here's the judgment. It's bad news. And the king of Babylon slew the sons of Zadok before his eyes. He slew also all the princes of Judah in Riblah. Whew, what a thing to see. Now that's bad news right there. If you have to watch your children being killed in front of you, and then all the leaders that you'd put in office, whew. Now that's a type of what's going to happen in the tribulation. It's going to be bad news. The devil's going to make an open and public show of what he thinks, getting the upper hand on God and killing anybody who denies that he's God. So that's like the Antichrist there. Look at Amos 6 verse 4. He says that lie upon beds of ivory. That's these people taking it easy. They're lying on beds of ivory. Now, the bed itself is not ivory. That wouldn't be very comfortable, would it? So more than likely, he's talking about the bed frame is made of ivory. They didn't have good foam back then, I'm sure. I don't know what they did for comfort, but we would all consider different things comfort. Jacob got him a stone for a pillow. I wouldn't have thought of that as being a good spot to lay. He says right here that lie upon beds of ivory and stretch themselves upon their couches and eat the lambs out of the flock and calves out of the midst of the stall. Okay, these beds of ivory, they're obviously the dining room chair. they're eating on these beds. Okay, that's the way they ate back then. You know, the reclining bed that you ate on. I wouldn't want to. I'd rather eat standing up than laying down. That doesn't make any sense to me. But these are these couches. Look at Amos 3 verse 15. This was a normal utensil that they used, these beds, normal furniture. And the rich people do just what the rich people do now. They deck it all out. You know, you got to Trumpify it, make it all gold. Amos 3:15. And I will smite the winter house with the summer house, and the houses of ivory shall perish, and the great house shall have an end, saith the Lord. You remember who built the first ivory palace in the Bible? This is a good trivia question for you. First ivory palace. Ahab, you got it. He did that. Now you remember when that happened, I'll tell you. That happens when he goes to steal a vineyard from Ahab? No, from Nabal's vineyard. That on the corner there, it's in the valley, it's on the east side of the valley of Megiddo, and it sits facing southeast. They've found it. On the corner of that wall was his palace, and it was ivory. Now, it wasn't his home palace. His home was in Samaria. But he made him a palace there because he liked the view. That's what rich people do. They build them big old houses that they're just going to visit for a few weeks out of the year. What a waste. Esther chapter 1. Esther 1 verse 6. This is giving you a look into what was high-class living back in the day. He says in verse 6, where were white, green, and blue hangings fastened with cords of fine linen and purple to silver rings and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver upon the pavement of red and blue and white and black marble. Okay, that's somebody who had it all. But having it all doesn't do you any good if another country's coming in at any minute and stealing it. And that's what they did. They just traded them back and forth. And that's exactly what's about to happen to Judah here. And Amos is trying to warn them, but they're not taking the warning. Amos 6 verse 5. Amos 6 verse 5. That chant to the sound of the viol and invent themselves instruments of music like David. Now, that's not saying that David was taking it. Now, there were times he did. He took it ease when he shouldn't have been at ease. But what David usually did was he invented instruments. We know that from the Old Testament. And those were employed in bringing praise to God. And he assigned people to play them. He assigned songs and wrote them songs to sing. Now, that was good. However, music, by and large, is not good. The devil's the first orchestra leader. And he quickly went downhill. Let's find that. Job 38. Job 38. Chris, you find that. I'm going to find one other passage. Find him leading singing there in Job. Found it in Job 38? 38:7. Go ahead and read that. Mm-hmm.
It says, when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy.
Yes, that's at the laying of the foundation of the earth. And you find in Ezekiel 28 that he's the archangel, and he was built with pipes and instruments within him. That's the way God created him. So he could breathe, and it was music. Now, find where music shows up after the fall. Genesis chapter 4. Yep. Genesis 4, look at verse 16. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. There's nothing about Cain's line that's any good. All of them are bad. Down to verse 20. And Ada bare Jubal, and he was the father of such as dwell in tents and such as have cattle. Verse 21. His brother was brother's name was Jubal, and he was the father of all such handle the harp and organ. Okay, so there's that music. It comes from a wicked line of murderers. You've got Cain that starts it out. How's it end? It ends with Lamech. Lamech says, I've killed 2 men. Well, my great-great-granddaddy killed one and he got away with it. I'm going to kill two. If God protected him, he's going to have to protect me twice as much. Ugh. That's how wicked they were.
The original rappers.
Rappers? Yeah. Well, no, they would be a lot better than rap. Rap has no music. There's no musical quality to it. This junk had some musical quality to it, but it was still junk.
Somebody talking to a drum beat.
Yeah, yeah. Wishing they were a drum. Amos 6 verse 5. Amos 6 verse 5. He says, they chant to the sound of the viol. Now that chant is the Gregorian music that you find the Catholics still love. It's almost, it's haunting music. It's that, it doesn't have much musical quality either. And to me, that's just spooky sounding. It's satanic. It really is. Yeah, yeah. That's what they're doing here. Well, music is intended for one purpose. David said that the Lord put a new song in his heart to give praise to God. That's the only reason that God lets us sing, is to give him praise. Everything we do is supposed to be for his pleasure. Isaiah chapter 5. I got to get to moving so we can finish this. Isaiah 5 verse 12. I told Toby it's going to be a short one. She said, is that possible? So it only got 6 verses. She said, oh no, that'll last a millennium. Isaiah 5:12. And the harp and the viol and the tabret and the pipe and wine are in the feast. But they regard not the work of the Lord, neither consider the operation of his hands. Whew. You know, you don't have to have music. It's great if you have music that you can praise the Lord with. But you don't have to have music at all to praise him. But guess what? To have a wicked party, you have to have music. Find a wicked party where there's no music. I don't think it exists. There's something about it, that connection to wicked music. And there's another thing that always follows with the wicked parties: wine. Alcohol and wicked music is satanic. Gotta watch out for it. Look at 1 Peter 4. 1 Peter 4 verse 3. For the time past of our life may have sufficed us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles when we walked in lasciviousness. That now he's going to talk about how wicked they were. And this is what wicked people do. They live for this. They may not be doing it all the time, but that's their goal, is to get to the next party. Walked in lasciviousness, lust, excess of wine, revelings, banquetings, and abominable idolatries. That's what the pagan worship was. It was a modern, now there was elements of it that were just, absolute horrible, drinking blood and killing babies and that type of thing. But other than those big things, it's the same thing you find on every college campus on the weekend, the frat parties. That's what it is. I want to cover one thing that has nothing to do with anything, but it's here. So he says, excess of wine. What does that mean? I mean, they were drinking too much? They should have just had a little bit? No, the wine is excess. I'm doing it again. I'm trying to come up with a verse that I don't have. Wherein is excess? What's that verse? That's in Timothy? Timothy, first. Yes, drink no. Ephesians 5:18.
I looked it up on my phone.
Yes. He says, Ephesians 5:18, be not drunk with wine, wherein is excess. The wine itself is excess. Whether you're out and out drunk or not, you become excessive. That's why shy people drink wine at a party, so they'll become looser, do things they wouldn't normally do, carry on conversations. They have it for the business people because that gets them all talking where they wouldn't have normally. Okay, there's the excess is right there. The excess is the wine. It causes you to be excessive. So I just wanted to cover that because somebody will point that out to you at some time and say it's okay to drink wine, just don't do it in excess. No, the wine itself is excess. Revelation 18:22. Revelation 18:22. This is God finishing things up. He said, here's what you've been doing, and I'm going to make it stop. Revelation 18:22. The voice of harpers and musicians, of pipers and trumpets shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee, and the sound of the millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. He says, I'm going to bring it all to a screeching halt. Now, you know that's what Babylon's going to be. It's going to be a perpetual party. It's going to be Las Vegas turned on high. You know, Sin City? Well, that's literally going to be Sin City. I'll give you one more verse and we'll be done. Amos 6 verse 6. We'll cover one more verse. Amos 6 verse 6. We have gone long, haven't we? I thought this was going to be short. Amos 6 verse 6. Here's the thing that follows that wicked music right off the bat, that drink wine in bowls. That is, these people are so well-to-do, they're not looking to sip it. They've got a big bowl and they're downing it. They're funneling. That's what the kids do. They're funneling wine now. And anoint themselves with the chief ointments, but they're not grieved for the affliction of Joseph. He said, what's going on just north of them is devastation. The Assyrians are coming in and depopulating and killing people left and right. And these people are down here throwing a party. And it's like they don't even care. Bad news. Hosea chapter 6. Here's what's going on up north, just north of them. They should be worried about their northern brethren being slaughtered, but they don't care. Hosea says this, Hosea 6:10. 6 verse 10. I have seen a horrible thing in the house of Israel. There is whoredom. There's the whoredom of Ephraim. Israel is defiled. Okay, there's the sin. So that's just like what they were doing in the south. They were living it up. Chapter 7, look at verse 1. When I would have healed Israel, this is God talking, then the iniquity of Ephraim was discovered. You know, God knows all of our sins, but it doesn't mean that he focuses on them. He gives us space to repent. And that's what they should have done. Before God had discovered it, they already knew it. They should have confessed it, but they didn't. So here's what he does. And the wickedness of Samaria, for they committed falsehood, and the thief cometh in, and the troop of robbers spoileth without. Bad news. That's just normal petty theft. Verse 2. And they considered not in their hearts that I remembered all their wickedness. Now their own doings have beset them about. They are before my face. God's mad about it. They make the king glad with their wickedness, and the princes with their lives. Look down at verse 9. Strangers have devoured his strength, and he knoweth it not. Yea, gray hairs are here and there upon him, yet he knoweth it not. And the pride of Israel testifieth to his face, and he doth not return to the Lord their God, nor seek him for all this. He says, I've let this happen, petty theft. Then I let this happen, a little more devastation. I let them start losing their money. Now they're poor, but they don't even know it. He says, I'm doing all this slowly. He does. That's the way he punishes us until we realize what he's doing. It seems like it takes us too long to wake up, and these people never did wake up. And in Amos, he's saying the north did not wake up. Judah and the south saw it, but they didn't take a lesson from it. I've got way more verses here. I'm just going to skip through. He said, no, we can't do all that. All right, I'll end it there. Whenever I finish this thing, I'll get you the notes on it. We're up to chapter 6, verse 6, and we're at 310 pages. So this is there's a lot of information here, and I'll get you that. Maybe I'll print them. I've got Obadiah I have not done. I need to get that done and get everybody a copy of that so you can have it. All right, that'll do it for tonight.